Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Daf Samach Beis. We are on Samach Aleph Amud Beis, right at the beginning of the parak here, beginning with the Mishnah towards the bottom of the Amud. It says the Mishnah Hadar ima'akim b'chatzer, one who resides together with a guy in a courtyard, or together with one who doesn't necessarily agree with Eruv, he doesn't follow the concept of Eruv. Rashi will explain this for us. This person will make Isser on the Yisrael and prevent him from carrying from his house to the Chatzah. Let's see Rashi inside. So there are the medium-sized lines here. On the first line says Rashi, Hadar ima'akim. Who's that? That's a kuti. So these were the group of people who were brought to Eretz Yisrael, whose conversion was questionable, and they certainly didn't follow the halachas of Eruv. So that's what we're speaking about, this type of person. That this is an example of somebody who does not follow the halachas of Eruv. So if a person resides together with a guy or one of these people in a chatzar, what happens? The Mishnah tells us he's oiser alav. The Yisrael can no longer carry from his private house to the shared courtyard. So generally speaking, if there are several Yisrael residents in a chatzar, what are they meant to do? They connect through an Erev Chatzeris, they collect some bread, which merges their usage rights in the chatzar by combining their residencies as one. It's like there's one family living in the courtyard, there's one residence, one usage area, and therefore you can transfer from the houses to the chatzar. It's not considered to be like taking from a private rishus to a different type of rishus, a public rishus. The chatzar merges them all together. But in the case of a goy, or if one's living together with a kuti in a chatzar, in this case, Eruv is ineffective. What then? The only way you can carry from your house to the chatzar is ad sheyiskar himenu, unless you rent from him rishus sheyesh le b'chatzar. The usage rights that this guy has in the chatzar, you rent it from him. And by doing so, you're sort of removing him. You're pushing him out of the chatzar. You assume full rights and ownership, usage rights to the chatzar. He's like merely a guest here, and therefore you don't have to reckon with him. So that's the Mishnah and the upcoming Gemara. That when it comes to Yisraelim, Eruv works. Not only does Eruv work, there's another option as well. It's called bittul. Let's say somebody forgets to take part in the Eruv. There's another way out. He's mavatal, he relinquishes, he gives up his usage rights to the chatzar, allows the other members to assume rights to his portion as well. And by doing so, they're allowed to carry, even though they didn't include him in the Eruv. So bittul is really a flip side of Eruv. And only one who has the ability to make Eruv can make bittul. So that applies to Yisrael. But a guy doesn't have the ability to make Eruv. He can't make Eruv, nor can make bittul. The only way out, the only true option is sechirus, renting his property from him, as we're going to learn in the Gemara. So getting back to the Mishnah, let's see again, Hadar ma'akim b'chatzar, if one lives together with a guy, or misha ein amayid b'erev, hariza oisvelav, this fellow will interfere and prevent the Yisrael from carrying, unless, as Rashi tells us, he performed this schirus, this rental. Now Tanna Kama holds that even if it's just one Yisrael with a guy, this restriction applies. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Omer, la'olam ein oiser. The guy will not make Isser ad sheyu shnei Yisraelim eisen zelzeh, until you have at least two Jewish residencies. At least you have two Yisraelim who take the guy away from here. They have to make an Eruv with each other. So unless you have that feature, you have two Yisraelim who are oiser one each other, who are required to make an Eruv regardless of the guy. In that case, the guy will affect things, and the only way they can carry is if they rent the guy's property. So according to our mayor, the guy is meant to be reckoned with even if there's only one Yisrael. According to Blazer and Yaakov, it's only when there are at least two Yisraelim present in this chatzar that the guy is even a factor. The Gemara will explain the reason for all this. Continues the Mishnah. What about a tzeduki? So these were true Yisraelim, but they neglected to follow the halachas of Chazal. They didn't follow Torah Sheba'al Peh, a different class of Yisraelim. So what happens there? The Mishnah will tell us that even a tztuki has a din of Yisrael, and can do Erev, and can do Bittul as well. Over Rav Gamliel, Ma'asa b'tztuki echad. There was an incident with this certain tztuki shayadar imanu b'mavi, b'Yerushalayim, who was residing with us, with our family, in the same mavi, within the same courtyard in Yerushalayim. And what happened was, he didn't do Erev with us, rather he did Bittul. So he relinquished his rights to his use of the mavi, and there were several chatzeres here, right? The Tztuki lived in one courtyard which accessed the mavi. We lived in a different courtyard which accessed the mavi. So he didn't participate in the Erev, which is really called the Shit of Mavois. That's a merging together of the usage rights of the alleyway, which is similar to Erev Chatzeres. He didn't take part, so he made bittul, and he gave us his rights to the mavi. Va'amar lanu Abba, and our father instructed us, Maru, hurry up, v'tzius hakel mavi. Go take out your utensils to the mavi. Go make use of the mavi. And by doing so, you're going to be machzik in the mavi. You're going to assume ownership. Right? He gave it up. Now you're going to attain his portion as well. Do it quickly. Before this fellow takes out his kalim, his belongings to the mavi. And by doing so, he's going to repossess. He's going to reattain his rishus. Right? He gave it up. Now, if he's going to use it before you use it, then he's going to get it back. So quickly, beat him to it. Go use the mavi. And by doing so, you're going to be machzik, going to solidify your ownership, which will prevent him from taking it back. Rabbi Yehuda, it was actually said differently. Go quickly and use the mavi for your needs. Before the tztuki takes out his stuff and makes it usher on you. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, he says that even if the Yisrael assumes possession of the mavi, uses the mavi, he's machzik in it, the tztuki still has the ability to take it back. So unlike Rav Gamliel, whose version of the events was that once the father told us, once you get a hold of it, the tztuki can't repossess it, can't take it back. Rabbi Yehuda held he does have the ability to do so. Therefore, their father instructed them to hurry up and use it before Shabbos comes, because otherwise the tztuki can come take it back. And that applies even after you have already assumed possession. So two versions of the same story. But the bottom line is that its tztuki apparently is regarded like a Yisrael who has the ability to make bittul. So in summary, a Yisrael can make Erev, can make bittul, a Goy cannot. The only option by a Goy is rental, is to make schirus of the rishus that the Goy has in the chatzah. When is schirus necessary? According to our mayor, even when there's only one Yisrael living together with the Goy, according to Lezer and Yaakov, we require two Yisraelim. As Rashi says, two Yisrael living in two homes who need to make an Erev on their own. So only in that scenario do we say, if there is a Goy present here, it complicates matters, and schirus is necessary. Otherwise, they cannot carry in the chatzah. Continues the Gemara up on top on Samach Beis Amud Aleph. Yosef Abaye bar Avin, Rav Chinna bar Avin. So these two, Abaye bar Avin and Rav Chinna bar Avin, were sitting together. And Yosef Abaye Gabayu, Abaye was sitting nearby, listening into the conversation. V'yas v'kamri, and those first two were sitting and discussing the Pshat Now Mishnah. Rameya says, even when there's one Yisrael with the Goy, he cannot carry unless he does schirus. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov says, it only applies when there are two Yisrael. What is the Pshat in these shittas? Bishleim Rameya Kasavar. We understand Rameya's shita. He holds, Diras Ovid Kechavim Shmadira. The dwelling of a Goy is reckoned with. It has significance. It's considered as though he has rights in the chatzah, and therefore Yisrael can't transfer from his house, his own house, which is his private domain, to the chatzah, which is a shared area, because that's all concept of the chatzeres. You can't transfer from one rishus to the other. It appears like Rabban. So Rabbi holds a Goy must be reckoned with. He has full usage rights to the chatzar. His dwelling has significance. and therefore the chatzar is a shared area. It's irrelevant whether there's only one Yisrael living with the Nachri or two Yisraelim. In both cases, he must reckon with a guy. Let's take a look at Rashi. Up on the top line, whether it's one Yisrael living with the guy or two. Why? Because Shema Dira. The Dira of a guy is reckoned with. He has full rights to the chatzar. It's called a valid residency. So as a result of that, since the chatzar is considered to be a joint usage area between Yisrael and the guy, so when Yisrael takes something out of his house, which is his personal place, to the chatzar, it's like he's being moitzi mishus or rishus. He's taking from one type of area to another type of area, from his personal place to the shared area, and that can't be done. Rabbanan gazru shelo moitzi mishus or rishus b'lei erev. Without an erev, we can't do that. Dilma asla fuki mishus yachash suram. This is the general concept of chatzeres. Don't transfer from one type of area to another type of area, such as here where the home is yours, the chatzer is shared. It's too similar to the Rishus Yachash Suravim, two different types of Rishuyas. Therefore, you must go ahead and make Erev. So in the case of a Goy, Erev doesn't apply. Schirus needs to be done. So apparently that's Rameya's Shita. Rameya holds the Dira of Enacha is Shema Dira. It has validity, has significance, and the guy living in the home has usage rights to the chatzar. We deem it as a shared usage area between the Yisrael and the guy, and therefore the Yisrael can no longer transfer from his personal home, which is his personal rishus, one type of rishus, to the chatzar, which is a different type of rishus. It's a shared area. And therefore, Rameya tells us the guy makes isser, and he has to go ahead and address it somehow through tzchiris. That's understood. Elder Lezer ben Yaakov, Micah Sover. But what's your Lezer ben Yaakov's svar? What does he hold? If he holds that the dira of a guy is considered, if so, even if there's only one Yisrael there, it should be Yasser. He has to reckon with the guy. And if he holds that the dira of the guy is not really considered to be a prominent enough dwelling, the Gemara soon is going to call it the dira shel behema. So it's like a temporary dwelling. We don't reckon with it. It's not chashav. It's the dira of a guy, and therefore, so when it comes to the halachas of Erev, we don't reckon with it, and it doesn't have enough significance and prominence and chashivas that we should consider it and reckon with it. When it comes to viewing the chatzar, when it comes to addressing the chatzar, whether it is a shared area or not. Well, if the guy's dira is not considered, is not significant enough, then we don't consider the chatzar to be belonging to the guy. It's not attributed to the guy because his dira is it doesn't have validity. So if that's the case, so even when the two Yisraelim in the chatzar with the guy, there's no harm. So this differentiation between one Yisrael with the guy, in which case Yisrael can't carry, he must make schiris, and if there's one, then he could carry without schiris. But if there are two Yisraelim, then we have to reckon with the dira of the guy. How do you make that distinction? Is the guy dira reckoned with? Then in all cases it needs to be taken into account. If it's not reckoned with, then ignore it, even when there are two Yisraelim. Why this differentiation between one and two? Amula Abai. So Abai was listening in, and he responded to them. They said that according to Rameir, it's understood. A dira of a guy is shma dira, and therefore the Yisrael must address the dira of the guy before carrying the chatzah. But according to Rabbi Lezer, we're not sure, we can't figure it out. So Abai responded, V'savar Rameir diras akash madira? Can you even propose that according to Rameir, a dira of a guy has validity? V'atanya, we have a brisa, actually Tosefta, which says Chatzer shlev kechavim hareyu kedusha behema. The Chatzer in which a guy lives in, many people, many goyim, let's say, live in a Chatzer. There's no concern there. It's like a dir shel behema, like a animal pen. It's doesn't have prominence, doesn't have chashivas, and each house doesn't have. It's not designated. It's not specific to this guy and this house to this guy. We don't consider it like separate dwellings in a chutzner, in which case is a concern of taking from the private house into the publicly shared area. It doesn't have that chashivas. It's like an animal pen. It's all considered one big collective residency. All the diras of the goyim are considered to be one big dira, and there's no difference between the house of this guy and the house of that guy and the chutzner. And therefore, there's no concern, there's no need to be worried about transferring from one house to from the house of the chutzner. The dir shebehema. So apparently, a dira of a guy is lo yishma dira. He doesn't have the power to make iser. And therefore, if a Yisrael would live with a guy, he doesn't have to reckon with him. So, this brisa, which is actually Rameir's shita, indicates to us that according to Rameir, a dira of a guy is not called a dira. So this won't work with your pshat and Rameir. Says the Gemara, Ella dekula alma dira yosakam lo yishma dira. Okay, so apparently the dira of a guy doesn't have to be reckoned with. It doesn't have provenance, doesn't have chashivas, and therefore, strictly speaking, a guy would not create any problems. If Yisrael lives with a guy in a chutzner, the of the guy is considered like a temporary dwelling. It's like a hut. It doesn't have that chashivas. It doesn't have that permanence. It's not considered to be designated for the dir of the guy and has that chashivas to make it personal, and the chutzner to be shared by that guy and the Yisrael. It doesn't have that power. So if that's the case, then what's the whole discussion now, Mishnah? What's the problem? If a guy is living here, it's like he's not living here. And we don't deem the chutzner to be a shared area between Yisrael and the guy. The guy's usage rights is not significant enough to be reckoned with. Says the Gemara, you're right. As far as that's concerned, it wouldn't be an issue. V'hacha, you know why the Chachamim told us that when the guy's around, it creates a concern? Due to the fact that the Chacham didn't want the Yisrael to live in close proximity to the guy. The concern was that a person lives together with a guy in such close proximity, perhaps he'll grow accustomed to the guy's way of life and be influenced by the guy. So Chacham made it difficult on the Yisrael to live with him. He has to go rent his possession, rent his property. It gets complicated. It costs money. We're going to learn something that the guy won't cooperate necessarily. So it makes things difficult, and perhaps this will cause the Yisrael it will discourage, dissuade the Yisraelim from living with the Goyim. So that's the whole motive here in the Mishnah. It's not an Eruvin halacha. As far as strict Hilchas Eruvin is concerned, the guy can't do any harm. His dir is not reckoned with. We don't view his home like a private dira and the chutzner like shared between him and the Yisrael. No, we ignore the guy altogether. The concern was that we don't want the Yisrael to live with the guy. So that's the basis of the discussion and the basis of the machlokes between Rameir and Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov. Explains the Gemara. Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov Savar, he says this concern only applies to a case where two Yisraelim live with the guy. Why? Because one Yisrael will never live together with the guy. He's petrified, scared for his life. Since a guy is liable for murder, trade the shrichi the diary, gazruhu. So one person on his own will fear for his life, won't live together with a guy in a chatz. Two people together, okay, they feel safer. Trade the shrichi the diary, it's commonplace for two to live with a guy, gazruhu. Therefore, Chacham applied this gzera. They required tzchiras to dissuade the Yisrael to live with the guy. However, one Yisrael where it's leishchiach, it's not common for that to happen, to live with a guy. Therefore, legaz rabbanan. Chacham didn't find a need to make a gzera. Legaz rabbanan, as we know that something was not shchiach, that Chacham did not apply gzera to, and therefore Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov holds one Yisrael is not shchiach. It's not common for that to happen. We don't have to worry about it. That explains why, if there's only one Yisrael living with the guy, there's no concern. He can carry in the chutzner without any eruv, etc. When it comes to Yisraelim, Rabbi Yaakov says we impose a gzera. We don't want this to happen, and therefore we require schiras to complicate matters and discourage the Israelim from living there. So that explains his shita. For Meir Savar, Zimnan de mikveh dair. You know what can happen to even one Yisrael decides to live with a guy. We know Rabbi Meir's Chai Shlemiuta is concerned even about uncommon things, and therefore, even by one Yisrael, Chachamim saw a need to apply this gzera. You can't carry in the chatzon unless you make schiras, which will hopefully discourage Yisrael from living with the guy. Explains the Gemara. So out of this concern, we don't want the Yisrael to live with the guy. That's what the Rabbanan said. Ein eruv moil b'makom akam. An eruv is ineffective when a guy is around. Vein bitul reshus moil b'makom akam. Neither can bitul reshus be applied in this case. Achi yasker. You can only carry if the guy rents his property. V'akam le'moiger. And the guy won't be so happy, won't be so eager to rent out his property. So since he won't cooperate, it's going to create difficulties, and this will discourage Yisraelim from living with Goy. Explains the Gemara, why won't the Goy cooperate? My time. He'll think, well, look, he's renting one thing, now he's gonna slowly gain a foothold of my property, he's gonna take over my whole ownership here. So that's why he's not going to be eager to cooperate. Is that the reason? That makes sense according to the Shita that holds that the schiras that the Chacham required was a proper schiras bria. The Gemara soon will explain what that is. So since he does a proper schiras, that gives the guy reason to believe that, look, the Yisrael is taking me over, and he's going to hesitate to cooperate. However, according to the other Shita which says that you only need to make a partial schiras, a symbolic schiras, not a proper schiras. So if that's the case, why would the guy be concerned about that? Michael and Meimar, why would he be concerned, and why would he not cooperate? What is the machlekes between schiras bria and schiras ruah? The itmaz we learned. Rav Chizda Amar schiras bria binan. We need to have a proper schiras. Rav Sheshes Amar schiras ruah. Even a partial schiras, a weak schiras is enough. My ruah, my bria. What are these terms referring to? Ilema bria bepachos bepruta. Are we speaking about the amount of money required to make the schiras? Bria means a healthy, a proper schiras using a pruta, which has a din of money, the smallest the coin here. So you need to make a proper schiras using the proper valid money. Ru'ua means a pachas which have a pruta. You can even use a smaller amount, something which is less than a pruta is worth, which is not generally deemed as money. So if that's the pshat, so if Chizda holds you need to have a shava pruta, if Sheshes holds even less than that. Says that can't be the pshat, because all agree that when it comes to renting from a guy, you can certainly use less than a pruta. Is there anybody that holds mi'akum? When you rent from a guy with pachas shava pruta law, you can't use less than a pruta? That's not the case. This seems to be universally accepted. That although when it comes to conducting a transaction amongst Yisraelim, a pruta is the bare minimum. When it comes to a guy, we find that even less than a pruta is reckoned with. Where do we see that? V'shalach Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yaakov Agyuri. So this person sent a message on the halacha, Mishmei Rabbi Yechon. He said the following halacha named Rabbi Yechon. Have a yoidim, you meant to know. She'ሰርchim min ha'akam, afilu pachas shava pruta. One can go ahead and conduct a proper rental transaction with a guy, even less than a pruta is okay. And it takes us to the next statement. Likewise, he said, this concept of less than a pruta by a guy has another application as well. That we find that less than a pruta is reckoned with when it comes to a nachri. If a guy happens to steal, so stealing is one of the 7 mitzvahs that a guy is meant to be careful with. So he steals, and he steals even less than a pruta, he's nerag. He gets misa. So Rashi explains because by a Yisrael, less than a pruta, big deal, he's moichel. A guy is not moichel. It's considered to be chashiv. And therefore, we consider it to be mammon, has a din of money, and even less than a pruta is considered to be a masek zela, and he gets mis. That's number one. You're meant to know that if once a guy steals, he can't rectify it, he can't pay it back and become pater. Unlike a Yisrael, where if he steals, he can return it, because we learned from a pasuk, Torah provides that allowance to pay back and undo what you did. So we find that a guy has two chumras. He can't return, and less than a prut is reckoned with. So in any case, what pertains to our Gemara is that apparently there's no discussion. This seems to be agreed upon by all, that when it comes to transactions with a guy, it can be conducted with less than shavar pruta. So it can't be that there's a machlekes in this regard. Right? We had a machlekes about the schirus on Shabbos, whether it's a full-fledged schirus bria, or schirus ru'ah. The Gemara proposed, perhaps it pertains to the amount of money needed, a pruta, or perhaps even less. The Gemara now concludes that all seem to agree, that when it comes to transactions with a guy, less than a pruta is okay. Let's take a quick look at the Rashi here. Right in the middle of the Amid, the words benoyach, you have it, benoyach nereg al gezel. This is just an aside, a halacha that just came along on account of the pruta thing. So Rashi explains this for us. Benoyach gets killed, gets misa on account of stealing. Why? The him zayin mitzvahs. It's one of his 7 mitzvahs. Kedamrin b'dalt mitzvah Sanhedrin. V'amar hasam. Now, why does he get misa? Because the Gemara explains as harash lehen zuhi misasam. The fact that they are warned, that leads to misa. As long as they transgress something that they're warned about, that leads to misa. Doesn't need to be a special pasuk that specifies their punishment. It's automatic. You don't do what you're meant to do, goodbye. Okay, so that's number one. The chiddush here is that a guy is not easygoing. He's not moichel, even less than a pruta. And therefore, that explains Vav Gezel the do. That's why when it comes to a guy, it's considered Gezel. So it's all relative to human nature, meaning by Yisrael, assumption is that he's moichel, he's easygoing. Yisrael have good midas, so less than a pruta, big deal. Doesn't make an issue about it. A guy is not moichel even a little bit. Therefore, it has chashivas. Therefore, it's called Gezel. That's the first chiddush. Number 2 is lo nitan le'ishaven. Once a guy steals, he has no ability to repay and to undo the avera. The gabi Yisrael ksiv ve'esher zagzela. That's specific to Yisrael. Aval ba'akum le'ksiv hashava. This concept is not mentioned by a guy. Hilkoch kiven she'avar nerag ein mishalom. So as soon as he's over, he's nerag and he's not mishalom. Okay, so in any case, pertaining back to our Gemara, to our Sugya, we see that less than a pruta is a valid schirus. So we're trying to find the true meaning of the words bria and the word ru'ah. What does schirus bria and schirus ru'ah mean? Says Gemara Ella, apparently, the question is not what you're using to do the schirus. All agree less than a pruta is okay. The question is, what does the rental agreement pertain to? What is the content of the ownership that you're coming to get from? You're coming to rent. Ella bria b'maharki v'avurgani. Bria means a proper solid rental, which allows you to move your furniture into the guy's property. The muharki, the benches, burgundy, these types of chairs or wagons. So the bria means that you have to assume proper ownership. Full ownership rights to bring your furniture in there. And that's what's required by schirus of akum. That's one sheet. The other sheet says that's not required. Schirus ru'ah is sufficient. What does that mean? Ru'ah below moharki v'burgani, even without these rights. As long as you do some sort of symbolic schirus, that's enough. Okay, so that's the machlekes between Rav Chizda, who says schirus bria, and Rav Sheshes says schirus ru'ah. So again, why did the Chacham require schirus? To make it difficult on the Yisrael, to discourage him from living there. He'll have this expense. Perhaps the guy won't cooperate, and he won't succeed in renting. He'll have to move out. So we're trying to figure out why the guy won't cooperate. Okay, so we understand according to the Shita, there needs to be a proper rental, which allows him to move his furniture in there. So the guy will think twice before renting out his property to this extent. Look, you're trying to take me over. So he won't cooperate. I'll make things difficult. However, if all you need is a weak, a partial schiris, just a symbolic schiris, without these extensive rights, so why should the guy hesitate to cooperate? Michael Ameimar, why wouldn't he cooperate? Even so, the guy will be concerned, look, the Yisrael here is pulling a fast one on me. He's doing some kishuf, maybe, some sorcery. Look, he's renting. It's really his. Why is he renting? He's giving me a pruta for some rights here to make me into... Something's amiss. And Rabbi Yonason adds, look, he doesn't even want to take it as a present. I'm offering it to him as a present. He doesn't want. He insists on giving me money. Something's wrong here. And he won't want to rent it. He won't want to cooperate. And as a result of this situation, the Yisrael will be discouraged from living there, and we're going to accomplish our goal to keep the Yisraelim away from the Goy and his culture. I was once during the summer in a camp, in a girls' camp in Russia, a Kirov camp, and we needed to make an Eruv, a real Eruv, a string around the whole camp to allow carrying within it. Problem was that there was some goyim there as well that owned the camp, etc. So we want to make the Eruv Chatzeros amongst all of us, all the Israel living there. We had to do schiras from the goy. So I went into the commander. This is in Russia. Everybody's a commander and a general. So we went in there and we had a translator who explained what we're trying to do. We need to rent rights to the area. We rented the place for the whole summer. He didn't know what we wanted. What do you want to rent? It's yours. So we tried to explain to him it's something pertaining to halacha, to Shabbos, and he's like, take the whole thing, no problem. It's all yours. It's all yours. And I gave him $1, and we rented it. And this was the schiras that we did to allow us carry throughout the entire area. So the guy views this whole thing suspiciously. What do you want? It's yours. What are you renting it from us? So the assumption is, the hope is that it'll make things difficult, and this will dissuade the Yisrael from living there, and he'll keep away from the guy. So at this point in the Gemara, let's just stop for a second. When a guy lives in an area, the Gemara concluded for us, diras akam lo yishma dira. It's not a significant enough dwelling. It's not considered to be designated and specific for him, in which case, even if you have many goyim living in a chatzar, many homes that belong to goyim in a chatzar, it's not as though this home is specific to this guy and this home to this guy, so that's his personal place, and the chatzar is joint usage area, in which case you can't transfer from one type of shus to the other. We say diras akam lo yishma dira. It's like one big collective residency, and this whole concept of er chatzer doesn't apply. That was the conclusion of the Gemara. But there's a concern about Yisraelim mingling with goyim. We don't want that to happen. So Chachamim imposed difficulties here. They wanted to discourage Yisraelim from living with goyim. Therefore, they said, when Yisrael lives with a guy, he must treat the dira of the guy as though it's a proper dira. And therefore, the chatzar is considered to be a joint usage area between your dira and the guy's dira. Therefore, you can't carry into the chatzar. You need to do something. You can't do eruv abitul. You need to do schiras, rent it from him. And the point was to make it difficult. Perhaps the guy won't cooperate. Why? Either because you need to make a proper schiras bria, in which case the guy will say, "Look, he's taking me over. I don't want to give up my property here," and therefore he won't cooperate. Or even if just a schiras ru'u is required, nevertheless the guy will be chayshvik shafim and he won't cooperate. Now Rameh holds this applies even to one Yisrael who lives with a guy. Perhaps even that could happen. That Yisrael, despite the fear of the guy, will live with the guy. Therefore, this whole concept applies even to one Yisrael living with the guy. Whereas Lezer Yaakov says it's not so commonplace to have one Yisrael living with the guy. He fears for his life. So therefore, there's no Isser there. There's no Gzera, no Takana there. And this only applies when there are two Yisraelim living together who feel more comfortable, more secure, protect each other. So that's more commonplace. And Chacham are concerned that will happen. Therefore, they require tzchirus to take place in the hope that this will dissuade and discourage the Yisraelim from living with the Goy. Continues the Gemara Gufa, so we just learned earlier, a chatzer, where a Goy lives, or many Goyim, is considered to be like a deer of behema, an animal pen. The dwellings of the Goyim don't have that uniqueness, that designation, that significance, so that we should consider this home designated for this Goy, this home for this Goy, in which case the homes are designated to these Goyim, and the Chatzer is considered to be a joint shared area, which is considered to be a different type of Rishus. We don't do that. And therefore, even if the Chatzer features many Goyim, one can freely transfer throughout the entire area. One can transfer in or out from the homes to the Chatzer and vice versa. But if there's even just one Yisrael living there in the Chatzer with the Goy, he makes things us. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Omer, no. L'oilam eino yoser. At sheyu shnei Yisraelim oisim ze'azeh. He holds that the only time a Goy who will make things usher and it will require schirus from the Goy is if there are two Yisraelim, as we discussed earlier. Now the Gemara will delve into the meaning of this brayse. Amar Mar, we just learned Chatzeri Shalakum, Hareyu Kedusha Behema. It's like an animal pen. Now Rashi and the Mefarshim explain as follows. The brayse began by telling us that the Chatzer Akam is a Dirsha Behema because the Dira of a Goy is Loishma Dira. It's not reckoned with. It doesn't have to be taken into account. Now the brayse, this is the brayse we just learned, concludes with the words, V'meisham Yisrael echad oiser. If there is a Yisrael there, he is oiser. What does this mean? We have to elaborate a bit on the meaning of these words and the general meaning of this brayse. This is based on Rashi, on other Mefarshim. There's a bit of a Teresh Shabal Peh here that has to be added. So we learned that the Dir of a Goy, Lo Yishma Dir, not reckoned with. There's a concern about association. Chacham didn't want you to mingle with the Goy. So, in a case where the Goy is actually present, if he's here, then Schirus must take place. But let's say the Goy happens not to be here for Shabbos. As the Gemara soon will explain, in this case, there will be no problem because there's no mingling, there's no concern, and therefore the Yisrael can go ahead and transfer from his own house to the Chatzer without any concern. This will be elaborated on in the upcoming Gemara. But that's only when it pertains to transferring from the house of the Yisrael to the Chatzer. The Goy won't do any harm because he's not here. Generally, his deer is not reckoned with. It's only association. That's only when he's here. He's not here. That's okay. So Yisrael could transfer from his own house to the Chatzer. But you cannot transfer from the Goy's house to the Chatzer. Even in the case where the Yisrael is actually not here for Shabbos, because the Dira of a Yisrael is Shmadir, it's reckoned with. And therefore, you can't transfer from the home of the Goy, which is a place where the Yisrael doesn't have any rights. It's a non-Yisrael entity, so it's one type of Rishus. You cannot transfer from there to the Chatzer, where the Yisrael has usage rights, which is a Yisrael entity. So it's a different type of Rishus. So, in this case, you can't transfer from the house of the Goy to the Chatzer due to the fact that a Yisrael lives in this Chatzer. So that is the Pshat in the brayse. The brayse that said that the Chatzer V'Akam is like a Dir Shel Behema. The Dir of a Goy is not reckoned with. Therefore, strictly Eruv pertaining to halacha of Eruv, he doesn't need an Eruv. Chacham are concerned about mingling, therefore they require something, but that's only when the Goy is actually here. Let's say he happens not to be here for Shabbos, there's no harm. The Yisrael doesn't have to reckon with him, he could transfer from his own home to the Chatzer, as if the Goy is not here. But the brayse continues, that if there was a Yisrael Echad Oiser, what does Oiser mean? He affects Isser on the Goy's property. And the point is that even if the Yisrael happens not to be here for Shabbos, but the Dira of Yisrael is reckoned with, has validity, and therefore you can't transfer from the house of the guy, which is a non-Yisrael entity, a certain type of Rishus. It's not connected to the Yisrael, into the Chatzar, which is connected to the Yisrael, a different type of Rishus. It's like taking from one Rishus to the other. And that's us. So that's the pshat in this price. Okay, so far so good. Let's continue. So the Brisa began by telling us that the Chatzar of a goy is like Gedish Behema, indicating that there's no reason to prevent from transferring from the house of the Yisrael to the Chatzar. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? We just had a whole Mishnah, a whole Sugya, telling us that, yeah, although a deer of a goy is not a deer, but there's a concern about mingling, you have to do schiras. Va'anan tanan, haven't we learned the now Mishnah? Hador ma'akim b'chatzar harei ze oisrelov. The person lives with a goy in a chatzar, the goy makes it on the Yisrael. You cannot transfer from the house of the Yisrael to the chatzar, due to the concern of Shelma Yilmud Mimasav. So Gemara will proceed and explain the Brisa as we had explained it earlier. Loikasha, the answer is Had Isei, Had Lesei. Our Mishnah, which tells us you must reckon with the guy, is when the guy is actually here. He's present on Shabbos. Therefore, there's a concern about influence from the guy. Therefore, unless you make schiras, you can't carry. You can't even carry from the house of the Yisrael to the Chatzar. Had Lesei. This Brisa is describing a case where the guy wasn't present, and therefore that concern is not present, and the Yisrael can carry from his house to the Chatzar. He doesn't have to reckon with the guy. Says the Gemara, so when the guy is not here, you don't have to reckon with him. But the Brisa tells us that the fact that the Yisrael happens to live here, so even if he's not here, that prevents carrying, doesn't allow us to carry from the house of the guy to the Chatzar, as we explained this earlier, because the house of the guy is a non-Yisrael entity, and the Chatzar is a yes Yisrael entity, a different type of Rishus. So you're transferring from one type of Rishus to the other. Now, if we're speaking where the residents are actually not here, the guy is not here, the Yisrael is not here, so when the guy is not here, you don't have to reckon with him. So why do you have to reckon with the Yisrael, even when he's not here? Why that difference between guy and Yisrael, right? The fact that the guy is not here, that allows the Yisrael to carry from his house to the Chatzar, because there's no concern, the guy is not here, you don't have to reckon with him. But you have to reckon with the Yisrael factor, even though he's not here, which doesn't allow us to carry from the guy's house to the Chatzar. How come that discrepancy? What does the Brisa hold? A home without an owner present, without the actual residency, without a fellow here for Shabbos, that's still called a residence. Afilu akim nami nitzer. So the guy as well should make isser, even if he's not here. And what should the result be? That the Yisrael can carry from his home to the Chatzar. So if you propose that the fact that the Balaam is not here, his Dira, which doesn't have a Balaam here for Shabbos, it's not called a Dira. And that's why the guy, when he's not here, it doesn't affect anything. After Yisrael, nami lo nitzar. So when it comes to Yisrael as well, the fact that he's not here, we should ignore him. He should not make it asa to transfer from the house of the guy to the Chatzar. Why that difference? Why that discrepancy between Yisrael and the guy? Says indeed, when the owner is not here, we don't have to reckon with it. The Yisrael, the difference is like this. The dira of a Yisrael is by its very essence a proper dira. The Yisrael, when he's around asar, he makes things asar al pidin because it's a proper dira. It prevents carrying from the house of the guy to the Chatzar, because the Chatzar is jointly used by the Yisrael and the guy. He's bringing it into a place where the Yisrael has rights, so he's taking it to a different type of rishus. So the fact is that when Yisrael is here, min hadin, it makes it us. And therefore, ki lesei gazer b'rabbanon. So even when he's not here, Chamed Gzera, on account of when he is here. We find this many times. Chamed Gzera in one case, for concern that it might lead to perhaps applying that heter to even the other case. So since when he's here it's Asr, so even when he's not here they extended that Isser to that case as well. But however, Akum the Chi'isei, when the guy, even when he is here, his deer is nothing. The only reason why there's a concern, concern that a person might be influenced by the guy. But not on account of the very essence of his dir that has significance. It's only due to that other peripheral concern. Therefore, that's only when he's actually here. Ki isse yasa. When he's here, he makes things yasa. Ki lesser yasa. But when he's not actually here, so there's no influence, there's no culture, there's no concern, and there's no reason to make it us. So just quickly to sum it up, the dir of a guy is not a dir. The dir of Yisrael is a dir. The only reason why a guy can make it usher upon the Yisrael to transfer from the Yisrael's home to the Chatzar, not on account of the dir of the guy. It's simply on account of the concern of Shema Yilmud Masav. He might be influenced by the guy. Therefore, the Chacham didn't want him to carry into the Chatzar without schirus. That only applies when the guy is actually here, when that concern is present. However, in the reverse, the Yisrael factor is present even when the Yisrael is not actually here. Why? Because his dir is reckoned with. And therefore the fact that he's around and he has ownership in the Chatzar, that prevents us from carrying from the house of the guy to the Chatzar. And that applies even when the Yisrael is not here. And the Gemara concluded that really when a Balaam is not here, the dir doesn't have significance. But there's a Gzera. And since when the Yisrael is here, it is a dir, and it makes it asa to carry from the house of the guy to the Chatzar, they extended that Isser even to a case when he's not here. Says the Gemara, do you mean to say that when the guy is not here, he doesn't make it us on the Yisrael? Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Hamaniach is basic. A person leaves his home for Shabbos. He spends Shabbos in a different city. Whether this fellow is a guy or a yid, he still is Eiser, meaning that he has to be included in the Erev Chatzeris of his place of residence, even though he's not actually here on Shabbos. If he's not included in the Erev Chatzeris, they cannot carry. Divrei Rav Meir. So apparently, even a guy who's not present on Shabbos, we deem him as if he's here. Hasam the Asa b'Yomi. Over there it's speaking where he's close by and there's a concern they might show up on Shabbos. Therefore, if you allow carrying now, you might continue carrying even when he shows up. Therefore, they didn't allow carrying at all. Says the Gemara, Amar B'Dam Shmuel. Getting back to our discussion that when there's a guy present in the Chatzar, you must make schirus. Rav Meir says even if there's only one Yisrael there, this halacha will apply. Rav Elazar ben Yaakov says it only applies when there are two Yisraelim. Which opinion does the halacha l'masa follow? Amar B'Dam Shmuel halacha Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, that only when two Yisraelim are present is schirus applicable. So we announce this in public. Halacha, this is the proper way. Rav Huna Amar Minhag Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. Minhag means that we don't publicize it, but privately we instruct people to follow the shita. Rabbi Yechon Amar Nagu Ha'am Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. This means it's even a step down, meaning we don't instruct people to do so. But if somebody does it, it's okay. He doesn't have to revert. He hasn't done anything wrong. We don't have to protest. Only a Bailer of Yosef. Kaimelon, Mishnas Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, Kav v'Noki. We know that the teachings of Rav Elazar ben Yaakov are few and far between. It's only Kav, it's a small measure. We don't find it stated too often. V'Noki, and it's clean, it's pure. It's accepted. So the few times that Rav Elazar ben Yaakov voiced his opinion, it was accepted, it's clean, it's pure, and we presume it to be the correct approach. So that's number one. And specifically in our case, we happen to know that the halacha concluded like Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. V'amar B'Dam Shmuel halacha Rav Elazar ben Yaakov. Now, being that it's so clear that we're meant to follow that shita, what's going to be in the following case? Ma'u lo'iruyei b'makom rabbi. We know that a Talmud is not meant to rule on matters of halacha, the presence of his Rebbe, in order not to infringe upon the authority of the Rebbe. He's not meant to take the mantle of authority to himself. Now, this type of ruling that the halacha follows Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, which is so accepted, it's so clear, is a Talmud also meant to refrain from issuing a halachic ruling in this matter? Or perhaps that only pertains to a case where he has to use his intellectual abilities, it's a svar, he has to deliberate and conclude one way or the other. That's considered to be ruling on matters of halacha. That he can't do. But perhaps this is something straightforward. The halacha follows Rezon Yaakov. We know this as a general formula. We follow Rezon Yaakov. We know specifically in this case that we want to follow that shita. Perhaps even a Talmud can issue such a ruling, Makom Rabbi. It's not considered to be an infringement on the authority of his Rebbe. Amar lei, so Rabbi Yosef responded, no, he can't. Afilu be'asa be'kutcha. Even a simple question. Can you dip an egg, be'kutcha, in a dip containing milk? Is that a problem of meat and milk, basar chalav? Even such a simple question. I personally asked Rav Chizda, Kol Shnei Rav Huna, during the entire lifetime of Rav Huna. I wanted to see whether he's going to issue a halachic ruling. Rav Chizda was a Talmud of Rav Huna. And V'loi Oiri, and he didn't. He didn't want to paskin halacha. So you see, even something as simple as that, a Talmud is not meant to get involved in. Taisa explains that we're speaking about eggs that were actually found in the chicken after shechita. So there's room perhaps to think that the eggs are considered to be basar. So it has some sort of factor to make it questionable. In any case, he didn't want to rule on it. So we see even something simple as that, a Talmud is not meant to get involved in. Therefore, pertaining to our case as well, a Talmud is not meant to rule on the halacha like Rabbi Yaakov. Another example, this was a scroll which contained a list of days during the year which are not meant to fast on, Yamim Tovim. Diksiva Mancha. It's recorded and it's available. So something as simple as that. Can a Talmud issue a halachic ruling regarding the days of the Megillas Tanis? Can he go ahead and instruct somebody, publicize it? Ba'asad the Rabbi, in the location of his Rabbi, is considered to be infringing on his Rabbi's authority. Amar lei. So Abai responded, Rabbi Yosef, Afilu be'asa be'kutcha, even this dip. I asked Rav Chizda, Rav Chizda, Kol Shnei Rav Huna, during the lifetime of Rav Huna, V'loi Oiri, and he refused to rule. So we see even something similar as that, a Talmud was not meant to rule on. Okay, time for a brief chazara of today's daf. We know that if somebody resides in a chatzir, he needs to make Erev Chatziris. Residing in a mavi requires a shituf mavais. And therefore, a Yisrael, even a Tzeduki, who live in a Chatzar, are required to make an Erev, or alternatively, a Bittul, which is another option if one neglects to make an Erev. So Bittul means he relinquishes his usage rights to the Chatzar and effectively grants his ownership, his usage rights to the other members of the Chatzar, the Mavi, and allows them to carry without including him in the Erev. The point is that a Dira of a Yisrael is Shema Dira. It has uniqueness, has significance, and therefore it has to be reckoned with when it comes to making the Erev in the Erev Chatzeris. Whereas the Dira of a Nachri, or even a Kuti, is Lo Ishma Dira, and technically it doesn't have to be reckoned with. But the Chacham will concern Shema Yilmad B'Masaf. We don't want him to mingle with the guy, he might be influenced by him, therefore they required him to make schirus from the guy, to allow carrying from the house to the Chatzar. There's one shita that requires a schirus bria, a serious type of rental, allowing him to take his furniture into the Chatzar. The other shita says schirus ru'ua is enough, even just a symbolic schirus is enough. So if there are two Yisraelim living in a Chatzar, they can't transfer. If there are two Goyim there, that's okay, because as long as there's only Goyim, that's fine. What if there are Yisraelim and Nachrim living together? Rabbi Yaakov says the halacha of schirus only applies to two Yisraelim where it's commonplace for them to live with a guy. Whereas Rameya says this applies even to one Yisrael, perhaps that can happen as well. Therefore, the Chacham didn't want that to happen, and they discouraged it by way of requiring schirus. What if there is no Baalim here? The actual owner is not here for Shabbos. So my Yisrael, where his Dira by very essence has significance, they extended that status to even when he's not here for Shabbos, and therefore he's Oyser. Whereas the guy, where it's only his actual presence that creates a concern, so if he's actually not here, we don't have to reckon with it, and one can carry throughout the Chatzar without any concern.